Hey guys, Will here. Welcome back to Modeling from the Instance Chair. Sorry I missed everybody last week. Had a bit of a cold, no coronavirus here, just a standard cold. So you probably still hear a little bit of my voice, but I did manage to get some progress made on the model still. Got a couple things I'm going to update you on and just go over a couple other things. Got a new shirt this week. We'll talk about that in a minute because I found it a little bit interesting. I got my nacelle here that I've done all the work on. I just primed it with the coat of the, to me, a fine white primer. So it's dried now. And I got some things I'm going to talk about with that though. But one thing I wanted to go over was, I had mentioned before about, there's a couple interview articles out there from Richard Taylor, who was responsible for a lot of the design and special effects on the motion picture model. And a couple of things that he talked about in relation to the nacelle. Now, I'd already talked about the die cam on the grills for the inboard side, but a couple other things that were interesting in the article that basically he was talking about how the front grill is basically based on I think it's a late 1940s Ford truck grill. So I think you can see a bit of resemblance there between those two. Truck grill. It might not show up too well because I ain't got the light set up for it, but you get the idea. If you've seen these, you know that kind of resembles it. And but the other thing that I found most interesting was that the overall design for the shape of the warp nacelle itself was based on a 1940s Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad M1. And you can see, I mean, you can see the resemblance on that. And that right there, to me, that is one damn sexy locomotive there. But you can see the obvious designs or design characteristics that were taken from that. I mean, just the shape of the nose of the warp nacelle stands out on the front of this locomotive. And these were built from 1947 to 1948. There were only 3 of them ever built. And unfortunately, they didn't work out. So by 1950, all 3 were scrapped. So the hopes of seeing one of these in person has been dashed. So, but I just thought that was really interesting. There's another shot of the same locomotive. But I thought that was really interesting to see that. That it was actually based on that locomotive. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, let's get back to modeling, and give me a minute. I'll put you on the desk. We'll go over what I got to go over. Alright guys, so one of the things I want to talk about was the colors that I'm going to be using for this. So for the most part, I'm going to be using Trek Modeler's paint guide, which you can buy from trekmodeler.com. The only issue with that right now is that a lot of these paints that it calls for, the Model Master line of paints, and unfortunately a lot of them have been discontinued. So I've had some problems trying to find all the colors. I got most of them, like probably 80% of them, but there was a couple of them, mainly the ones for making the green for your strongbacks and for your pylons. Any of the green accents required certain paints, and they called for using Model Master's pale green and neutral gray, and you tone it down with Model Master's flat white. Well, I got the flat white, and I think I got the neutral gray, but I couldn't find the pale green anymore. So what I did was I went online and looked around, and come to find out, I think these are real colors. I think is what these are called, AK. It says AK on the front, but I think it's Real Colors AK. But you'll notice, what I noticed was a lot of their paints use the same codes. So this calls for Model Master's FS 34227 pale green. Well, also on their paint line here, it's a pale green FS 34227. So, and it's pale green. So I found a couple replacements. Same thing for this tan. It's the same number that Model Masters use. So if you're trying to find those paints, try this line. A lot of them, even the blue-gray, that M485, matches up. So try that line there. I found these, I don't know where all they're available. I found these on eBay, but I'm sure they're available in other places. But if you're working on this and you're having trouble finding those Model Master paints, that's a good option for you, is check that out. They even use the same numbers, so you can match them up that way. But looking at, I just did, pull this down, I just did a primer coat on my wart nacelle. I've still got tape covering up parts of it, but so it's looking pretty good. I've got one spot here I got to do a little more seam work on, but for the most part it's looking pretty good. I checked it for light blocks or light leaks, and the light leaks are looking pretty good. One or two that I may have to address, but I can address it later on. I will say that if you're looking for a way to seal up the light leaks around the front warp grill, or the grills up here in the front, what I do is I take the epoxy. Like this time I used, just because this is all I could find at the moment, but it's a Gorilla Glue epoxy, clear, sets in 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute epoxy. But what I'll do is I'll take that, I'll mix some of that, I'll use my pick here, and I'll just put a little bit right along the edge there, all the way around the edge. And I'll come back with a paper towel or tissue, whatever, and wipe off the excess, because if you leave the excess in there, then your grills, when you go to paint them, you'll see that that excess is filled in your grills. So you want to come back, wipe it out, come back with a pick, run it down the grills to make sure you got them cleared out real good before, and you got 5 minutes. So it may not sound like a lot of time, but it's enough to get it done. And then when that dries, when you come back and light block it, I'll do a little bit of light blocking on the outside, and I'll get some black paint up in here, and that'll seal up that light leak pretty well around the warp grill, or around your grills up front here. So just one little tip, in case you're trying to figure out a way to get that to seal up well. That's what I found. It's worked for me. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but that's the way I've done it. So, but I've got that primered right now, just into Mia fine white primer, and I'm doing some paint tests right now, so I haven't settled on what color I'm going to use yet. I do have the iridescent paints. I'm going to use those, but right now what I've got is I've taken this saucer section from the original series, the 1600 or 1537, whatever scale it is, and I did Tamiya fine white primer all over, and then I taped it off in half, and what I did was I airbrushed Insignia white. This is the Vallejo Insignia white for the Air, Model Air. But what I did was I taped this off and I sprayed half of it, and I don't know how well it's going to show up in light. I think you can see that the side that's just the Tamiya fine primer has a little bit of a sheen, and the Vallejo side with the Insignia white doesn't really have that much of a sheen to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that iridescent paint, and I'm going to spray it on each of these and do a couple lines and just see which one I like as far as how it shows up, how that iridescent paint is going to show up. I really like the Insignia white. I'm just not sure how that iridescent paint is going to show up on it. So I'm going to do a paint test on it, and next week, because I'm not going to get to it today, but next week when I come back, hopefully I'll have that, and I'll have a decision made on how I'm going to do this, whether I'm just going to do the Insignia white clear coat, or whether I'm just going to do the fine white primer and clear coat, and then do my my iridescent paints. But it's part of the learning process, so that's what I'm going to be working on, trying to decide on that. But I do like that Insignia white a lot. I think it more closely matches what you see in the model, the studio model. So, but there's that. So give me a minute. We're going to come back. I'm going to look at the saucer section, what I've done to that so far, and where I'm going with that. And just give me a minute. We'll come back and we'll take a look at that. All right, guys. So I'm not having a lot of fun with this saucer right now. I had mentioned on the last video that I had tried to kind of oversize the windows a little bit on these inserts I'd gotten from Shapeways, and it wasn't working out too well. It was just chipping. It wasn't making a smooth hole, and so my thought was, all right, well, I'll fill it in with epoxy and I'll come back, sand it down, and try to drill again. Well, everything wasn't going too bad until I tried to do the oval windows, and then it just started doing the same thing again. It just started chipping. The round windows, as long as I took my time and went slow with it, came out pretty well. But those oval windows, they just started chipping and breaking, so they are way too big now. So I had to go to plan B, and haven't sanded this down yet. I'm going to go out and do some sanding in a minute, but I just want to catch all up on this. So I've put in the part from Lake Monster Models, and yeah, I've been a little overzealous with the putty, but I'll get some water and a paper towel and wipe that off and get most of that cleared off. And I'll come back and sand around the edges and get that smooth. So I'll show you that when I come back after I get that done. But the other thing I'm working on right now too is, and don't worry, it's dirty, but I got to sand all this off and prime it, give it a good primer coat. This was mainly just to see where my flaws were at. And I still got to do my phaser banks on the bottom side here like I did on the top here. I've got some fiber optics sticking out that front one. I'm going to light it up. But so that's where I'm at with these windows. What I'm having to do is go in and cut these back out now. And when I start cutting them out, they come out pretty easy because they just start chipping and breaking and they fall apart. And I just got to make sure I get all the stuff out. And then I smooth the hole out, and I come in with not the Shapeways, but the Lake Monster model parts from Cass, and trim them down, take these tabs off the side so I can just slide them into the insert here, glue them in place, and then like I said, I'll sand this all down and wipe this part off with some water, and it'll come clear again, and we'll get those in place. I don't know if I'm going to drill these again or leave them the way they come from Lake Monster Models. I kind of like having my windows open and doing my painting and then coming back and being able to just use some micro crystal clear and fill them in. And these are already one piece, so there's no holes in these. So I still might drill them out just so I can do that, because that's kind of the way I like to do it. That's my preference. But so I've got that Lake Monster Models part I'm working on, and I also talked about the fact that these thrusters on this corner, you'll get these thrusters top and bottom. This one and this one will line up top to bottom, but this corner here will be off. And I've marked, you can see in pen there where I've marked where that thruster needs to be, so you can see how much that is off from top to bottom. Now the thing is, I recommend moving the thruster on the bottom, because on the top it's lined up with this grid line. So if you move it, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's not centered, and the only way to fix that is to re-etch that line, and then you got to worry about all these lines not being even all the way around, and it's just too much. So my recommendation is when you line these up is do it on the bottom, because it'll be off, but it won't be as obvious as it will be looking at the top, because this bottom part's a little more out of sight. So out of sight, out of mind. So we'll do this one. What I'll do is I'm going to get my drill, I'm going to whittle this out some, and then I've already cut down the Lake Monster Models part, so it's just like this, and I'll slide that and glue that in place there, and we'll be good to go. And I'll probably go ahead and do that. I may go ahead and redo all these, because that's going to be the oddball out if I don't. So anyway, that's what I'm going to work on real quick, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so what I've done is I've cut all those windows out. Move my light a little bit. But cut all those windows out from the saucer, and I've replaced them with the Lake Monster Models part, but I've done a little bit of modification to them. I've drilled all the windows out, as you can see, and what I did was cut the old part out, it's one of the Shapeways parts. Just wasn't turning out the way I wanted it to. I thought the windows looked a little small compared to the rest of the ship. And then when I look at the image from the Studios models, it just didn't fit right to me. So originally I filled them in, tried that, couldn't quite get it to work out right. The printed shape models parts started chipping and breaking, so decided to go ahead and remove those. And like I said, now I've got the Lake Monster models part in here. I've got some filling to do, quite a bit of filling to do on some of these, but pretty happy with the way it's turned out so far. I think these the windows on the Lake Monster models part are a little bit better sized for the 1537. So if you look at your part that comes with the kit, well, for one thing, I think I pointed out before that these two bottom windows, the two small ones, are not centered properly. So you can see this one on the left here is way over. It's too close to that one, and it's not centered under the four windows above. So that's a bit, it's always been a bit of a sore spot for me. I didn't really care for that. But when you look at these are actually quite a bit smaller, and you can see the, hopefully make out the difference there. If I can get in the camera. But there's your difference as far as how much these spread out. So to me, the ones that even come with the model are a little bit small. They're not spaced out enough. Some of the window, like I said, here isn't properly aligned. So, but then there's the Paragraphics template. The Paragraphics template really made these too far out and too big. Again, when you look at the studio model, I'll show you. I marked on here. So I marked on here where the black spots are where the furthest out oval windows would have been with the Paragraphics template. When you look at it, this spot in particular here is almost directly under this this hatch here. And when you look at the studio model, your furthest out window is, I'll bring this a little closer for you. Your furthest out window is here, and that hatch is way over here. So you can see this window shouldn't be under that. And with the Paragraphics template, that window ends up like over here. So it's too wide now. I think these windows from Lake Monster models, I think they line up a little bit better. And like I said, I drilled them out just because that's the way I prefer to do it, to get a little more light through there. Also, it lets me paint this without having to worry about masking it. And then I can come in and just fill this in with micro crystal clear after I get all my painting done. But so you can see I've got all those in. I've replaced that one. I am going to leave the Shapeways part for the officer's lounge in there, just because I've already got the officer's lounge in there. I don't want to take a chance of messing that up. And with the Lake Monster models part, I'm just not confident enough to get these windows square to drill that out. So this one's already got the windows open on it. I'm just going to leave that. There will be a little bit of a difference there as far as the window sizing, but I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Also back here, you'll notice I filled in, I got to glue that back in place, but you'll notice I filled in the neck right here, just under the impulse deck. So got some sanding to do there. I'll get that sanded and shaped properly. And other than that, and I did get in that that thruster from Lake Monster models. I got one in, and like I said, I think I'm going to go ahead and do all of them, which I'm not looking forward to, because it's not a lot of work. But I got to modify this part, and then because I've already put this together, I've got to drill this out and then try to do it smooth, you know, sand it smooth and everything. And it's a little more work than if I had done this to start with, but it's definitely, you can tell now that those thrusters are, oops, lined up a little bit better now. So I don't have that one that's way off over here. I've puttied it in where the old one, where it originally was, and filled that in. So that's what I'm working on right now. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get these, use some epoxy, and I'm going to get these gaps filled in around the windows on the saw. I got a big one there. I got to get filled in that chipped. But I'll get these filled in, and we'll come back and take a look at it again. Stay tuned. Alright guys, I think that's going to do it for this week's update. Didn't get as far as I would like to over the past 2 weeks since I did my last update, but you know, getting some progress made. The painting is going to be the most tedious part. I still got a couple other things I've got to finish up, as I was talking about, as far as the saucer section and that. But it's coming along, and we're getting close to the finish line here. But I just want to say I appreciate everybody subscribed. I think we're up to 160 subscribers or somewhere thereabouts. But I'm just glad to see people getting some use out of information. Appreciate everybody's comments and suggestions. If you have one or a question, please either shoot me a question below, or you can shoot me a question at my email, which is ensignschair@gmail.com. Or you can check me out on Facebook and shoot me a message on there. Just do a search on Facebook for @ensignschair. I do post some updates and pictures on there every once in a while that don't come up anywhere else. So take a look at that. But I appreciate everybody. Till next time, keep modeling.